Welcome to Tackle Fanatics TV, and in this episode of TFTV you get a chance to check out Korda's Low Stock Pits Masterclass with Danny Fairbrass and Darrell Peck.
Welcome to the team called a Masterclass on low stocked big pit venues. We've chosen a water in central Belgium. A notoriously difficult lake. Is 80 to 100 acres, and we found out this morning there's only 120 known carp in here. There are obviously some big ones, and the lake record goes over 70 pounds. They're absolutely stunning fish. I fished the place probably 15, maybe 18 years ago, when obviously it was a completely different kind of lake, and I think the numbers have thinned out and the fish have got bigger over that time, and it's one of those circuit places that gets loads of attention. And over the next few sessions, we're going to share with you everything that we learn about the lake and how our fishing evolves during that learning process. And you'll be able to put that into your own fishing on any low stock big pit water across Europe and across the world. I'm here with my good mate and unstoppable big fish angler, Darrell Peck. We were chewing the fat in the van on the way over here, not really knowing what was in here. Would we be fishing at extreme range? Would we be fishing in the edge? We brought all the tackle to do everything at this stage, and I'm sure we will learn more about the lake as the sessions go on, and we'll be able to share that with you, new items of kit, specialist rigs to suit this kind of place, and specialist tackle as well. We arrived this morning, had a good walk round, didn't really expect to see anything. It was about 10 o'clock in the morning local time, bearing in mind we'd left England at like 4 o'clock in the morning. And like I say, didn't really expect to see anything. On our first lap of the lake, we got round to this part. There were loads of fish down the bank, so we flipped a coin. We both wanted the same swim, as you always do. Flipped a coin, Mr. Peck won, and he set up right on top of the fish, and they were showing really close in. And that's the first tip we can give you on these places. Let the fish tell you where to fish. We didn't go down in the wind and just set up in the wind and spray our rods out. We didn't go and fish at absolutely miles out just because we can. And if we hadn't seen fish on that first trip, we were prepared to lap the lake until we found something worth fishing for. And we both thought we probably wouldn't see anything today. We'd wait until tomorrow morning, have a good look round at first light, which is the best time to see them, and then move on to fish then. But in true Darrell Peck style, he's caught 2 already. We're only here 2 hours and he had 2 in the net. And after a couple of epic battles, caught them really, really close in, 2 clonking fish, you know. And to be honest, if we caught 1 big fish over the next few sessions, we would have deemed that a result. With only 120 fish in 100 acres and not knowing the lake either as well, you know, that would have been really good. He's caught 2 in the first couple of hours. So I'm going to hand you over to Mr. Peck now. He's going to show you what he's caught, and after we put them back, he's going to show you the rig he caught them on.
Right, here he is, my first ever Belgian carp, an absolute beauty, just over 25 pounds. Come just after moving on to some showing fish, flicking them out, and hadn't been in the water an hour, and we're into this beauty. Absolutely over the moon, but we're going to get him back because I've got an even bigger one to show you soon. Well, here it is, my second ever Belgian carp, and a personal best to boot, 51 pound common. I'm absolutely over the moon. It just goes to show you, find the fish, get on them, simple rigs, and you can catch beauties like this. I'm buzzing. Gonna get him back and try and catch a few more. Right, starting with the hook bait here, you'll notice it's bright pink. Originally that was a 10mm milky toffee, and what I'd done to that is added a little bit of squid flavour, a little bit of plum flavour and a tiny bit of sweetener. And once those baits are drawn on those additives and had gone dry, I added the old squid goo, the supreme version. It's really thin and that cuts deep inside the bait. Now, the reason I use pink is I've had great success on that in the recent seasons. In my opinion, it's the new white, the new yellow. It's a great colour, and whenever I've used it, I've had great success. Moving down from that, you'll notice that the first part of the hair as such of the rig is peeled, and it's the only part of the rig which is peeled, and that just allows the bait to have a little bit of natural movement and allows the hook to do what it needs to do, catch into the fish's lip. Talking about that in particular, You'll notice between the split shot and the eye of the hook, I've got roughly 1 inch of coating remaining, and that is shaped just using my finger, and that helps for the turning process. You know, when I'm using that choddy hook in combination with that back turned eye with the curved section, that helps for the aggressive turning. When that hook link is tensioned as the fish moves up for the bait and tightens the hook link, that hook will roll over into the fish's lip. Now, don't be paranoid about the fact that I'm using a size 8 hook. Think that that's a very small hook for big fish. Let me tell you now, I've caught a lot of good fish on this. Moving down the rig, got a split shot, you know, nothing less complicated than that. You know, you could use putty, but I find split shot doesn't move, to nip it on there, and that Dyneema core that's inside the braid is as tough as old boots. You ain't going to damage that. Moving down the boom section, probably 6 inches long, and I believe that when you're using a boom of roughly 6 inches long and using a critically balanced pop-up, once that's fully extended, so it's not far from the lead, but the fish, once that sucks that in, it's only going to have to move 1 or 2 inches. That's going to tension the hook link to the lead, and it's going to result in a hooked fish. Moving down, you notice I've not got a quick link. I'm straight onto the ring swivel of a hybrid leg clip. I use these 9 out of 10 times in all of my fishing because I just think they suit what I do, you know. Very safe, very easy and very neat, you know, a very good piece of equipment. I've got a little 2-ounce bomb, perfect for here. We're moving on to showing fish. I'm pinging out there, feeling down into deep water. There's not a lot of weed about. I get a nice drop and I'm confident that on a lake like this, that I'm guessing is probably a sandy sort of bottom, this will be presented 99 times out of 100 and fishing well. You'll see that I've got dark matter tubing. I use this again 9 out of 10 times of all my fishing. It's very heavy, very supple, very easy to thread, and very user friendly. So there you have it. That's the rig I'm using here. Go on. Yeah. Yes. Get it. Yes. Welcome to Belgium.
Well, check that out. 33.5 pounds of Belgium gold. Absolutely over the moon after an epic battle. In the net he went, and I could not be more happy. To get a bite within the first 24 hours on a new lake that's this size with this many fish in it is just an absolute result. They've been showing out there this morning. They drifted closer in and bang, it was away. And just like Darrell, I'm using pop-ups, but my rig is different, so we're going to slip him back and show you what I'm using. This is my rig for casting at showing fish and getting out there as quickly and as quietly as possible. It's a pop-up rig and it's the classic hinge stiff rig. So I've got a size 8 choddy hook there. This one is a squid infused sort of darker pop-up. This started off as a cell pop-up. It's not quite so bright as the ones that Darrell's catching on, but don't ignore putting it onto dark ones as well. And the squid is an absolute winner. It's the supreme, the thin one, and that eats in. Over a few months, it'll eat all the way to the middle of the bait. It doesn't really affect the buoyancy, and it's just flooding out the whole time it's in the water. And then moving down, you've got a nice curve in that. So that's 20-pound mouth trap. Then the boom section, that's made out of hybrid. That's the really stiff material, coated material, and that's crimped at either end, just using the crimping tool. And basically over the crimp closest to the ring swivel, I've put a little bit of dark matter putty, and that sinks it reasonably quickly. It doesn't go down really slow, because I think if it goes down too slow and hits a bit of weed halfway down, it can stay there. So if it sinks pretty quickly, hopefully it will find its way, if there is any weed, to the bottom of the weed and look more like a free offering. The boom itself is probably about 5 inches long, something like that. I reckon that's good for out there. Most of it's pretty clear. I'm not casting it into heavy weed. I do use it a little bit longer, perhaps, you know, if I wanted to push it away from the lead a little bit more. And I've caught on really short booms as well, only a couple of inches. And that could be really good if the chod rig's been used a lot. You can just put a boom on of a couple of inches and that starts snaring them when the chod rig gets you funny bites and you start dropping fish. And then the lead system, it's a helicopter rig. That's just tied by myself with the cable lead core, only probably about 2 feet long. The rule on here is it can't be more than a metre. I think that's a really good rule. 12 foot, like 4 metres of lead core, serves no purpose at all, and it can get caught up in weed and snags much easier and leave the fish tethered to them. So the shorter you make it, the safer it is, and it can be made safer still with one of these no trace beads. So you've got a little tapered sleeve in the kit, and then that hard bead, that slides over it and it will pop off if the fish is dragging it around any distance. The hook link then slides off the end of the lead core and is away from the lead, and that's the most important thing. Personally, I think this sort of system should be compulsory everywhere now because it's so safe. With that hard bead just popping off, there's nothing to stop the hook link getting off the end of the lead core. It's a couple of inches, maybe 3 inches up from the lead because the lead's not plummeting into the bottom. If it was very weedy or very silty, then I'd move that up a little bit. So that's my rig for casting towards showing fish and not really knowing what it's landing on. It's presented pretty much everywhere and it is absolutely nailing them.
Right, yesterday, absolutely loads of fish here. Got them out, caught a couple, but now it's gone really, really quiet. I've seen a few down the other end. I'm gonna have a quick move and try and get on them. You know, the guys we spoke to yesterday, they had a fridge with him. You know, what's the chance of a guy with a fridge moving swim? Very unlikely. So hopefully these little quick moves onto showing fish into little cubby holes should pay good, and I should get a couple more.
Well, completely out of the blue, it has roared off, middle of the day. They say daytime bites on here. I was thinking about winding in, putting a bit of bait in and resting the swim and going down to see Pecky. It probably doesn't come across in his commentary to you, but his tenacity and his energy and his fishing is just incredible. If he'd had bites at the other end, then I would have moved down there as well. But it's pointless two people moving on the fish, putting 6 rods out. I see a fish show out in front of this swim, not over this rod, over one of the others, but so I didn't bait up, I didn't wind in. Middle of the day, I'm guessing it's best part of 30 foot deep. It's roared off with a very powerful fish. I'm gonna have to move down to the water's edge now. This one is on a garlic goo infused mainline pop-up. I've had them soaking in it for, well, almost months now. I've done really well on it in the UK and it's working over here. Getting closer to being ready now. Come on, fella. In the net you come. In the net you come. Come on. Get in that net. Yes, come on. Ah, that was wicked. And how about that for an absolute wood carving of a carp, just over the magical 30-pound barrier, and absolutely nailed on that hinge stiff rig and a size 8 choddy. We're employing very simple tactics, just using the throwing stick, 15mm banoffee boilies over the top, and it's working an absolute treat.
Right, there you go. The quick moves paid off. Look at this cracking 43.4 Belgian mirror. I'm over the moon with it. Look at the colours on him, it's absolutely insane. Loving it. Right, we were just photoing that lovely 43-pounder and we're doing some water shots and this rod is absolutely tore off. It feels like a decent one, so I'm going to concentrate on getting him in. Excellent, absolutely over the moon. Right, have a look at him, 28-12. He's the one that ripped off when I was photoing the 43, so I nearly had a brace. Absolutely cracking fish. These Belgian fish are absolutely amazing. I'm going to get him back because I've only got one rod in the water and I want to catch some more beauties like this. Well, here he is, Belgian carp number 5, 29 pounds, taken on my simple little pop-up rig with a little scattering of those banoffee 15 mils. Very good tactic when you've got fish showing, 2 ounce bombs plopped out, 30 or 40, maybe 50 yards, and then over the top with the 15 mils, 4 or 5 in the throwing stick, and it's a pretty inconspicuous method when fishing in that depth of water.
We are now 48 hours into our session. Obviously Darrell Peck is absolutely on fire. I opted to stay in the original swim last night and I did what most people would probably do at the start of a session, put the 3 rods out at the same sort of distance, put bait out over the top of them. What I did is I cast the Sky Winder out with a few boilies in it. That was clipped up about a rod length short, so I was 19 rod lengths with the rods, 18 with the spod rod, and then when that's hit the surface I pick up the throwing stick and I'm throwing sticking boilies and I'm using that spod as a marker, so I haven't got a marker float in the swim, it's sitting on the surface and I'm using it to put the boilies out to. But the added advantage is the seagulls don't like the braid on the surface and they won't dive as much when the braid's out there, so I'm casting it out, putting as many out as I can before it drifts off, winding it in and repeating. Now the morning before, the fish had started out in the middle of the lake and had drifted in, and I'd got a bite at sort of 7 o'clock in the morning and another one about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. This morning that didn't happen. Nothing showed out there. Got up really early again, didn't see any fish at all, saw a little bit of slicking, and then the icing on the cake, the thing that really told me I need to move was the fact I caught a bream this morning on one of the rods. So the slicks that were coming up as the fish were eating that bait, it was obviously bream, not carp. Hadn't seen any carp at all, and more importantly I got the nod from Darrell Peck, get round here because there's fish showing round here, and you probably can't see it from the film but he is so on it. That's what catches him the fish. A guy came round yesterday and said, you have caught a lot of fish, I am not catching anything, I am using bottom baits, you are using pop-ups. That is not the reason Darrell is catching. Darrell is catching because he's Darrell. I don't know anyone that looks as much, that moves as much, that puts as much energy into his fishing, and if Darrell says move round here, I'm going to move round here. So I've cut all my gear down, taken stuff back to the van that I don't need, and I've crept round here and the fish are here. I've just flicked out 3 light leads out into the area. I'm putting the boilies out with a throwing stick, a couple of boilies at a time. If the seagulls turn up, I'm just stopping, waiting for them to go and then putting more out. And it looks really good for a bite. Darrell's on them, he's just round the corner. He's got 3 rods spaced out and I'm sort of probably 150 yards away. We're either side of a pack of fish. So hopefully today one of us is going to get a bite.
Right, have a look at that. 42.5 pounds of Belgian common carp. A take completely out of the blue. Wasn't sure if the fish was still in the area. They'd been there this morning, but nothing happened at the bite time that we've been getting them at. We wound in, had a little walk about, came back to the swim, nothing better going on. Plopped them out just a little bit further, put a few more of those banoffee baits out there, and would you believe it, this one's picked it up. 42.5 pounds, lovely.
The hardware that Darrell and I are using for this opportunist style fishing is almost identical, and that's no coincidence. We're both on 12-foot 3 3/4 Bezier rods, and that might sound pokey for fishing close in, but it means we can do everything from a rod length to 120 yards with ease. And we've got the big guns in the car, so we've got some stepped up infinities, 13-foot infinities, a new rod. And if we had to fish out at extreme range, that's what we'd be using. But for this sort of just dinking it out, sort of 40-50 yards, this kit is perfect. We're both using Bezier reels as well because they cast so well and they've got the quick drag on them. Mine is loaded with 20-pound touchdown, so 0.43 diameter. So you've got amazing abrasion resistance, and because there's less stretch in the touchdown, you can fill the lead down really easily, and that plays such a massive part in mine and Darrell's fishing. You know, we must know what we're fishing on. There's no guesswork. You know, you want to know if you're in weed or you're in silt or you're on a nice hard spot, and having that extra diameter when you're playing big fish like this just makes you feel that little bit more secure. With these stiff rods, you'll notice both of us when we play our fish, we keep the rod very high. The rod's not bending that much. We're not pulling the head off the fish. The nice thing with a stiffer set of rods, one, you can cast further out if you need to, but also there's always something left to in the rod. So if you've got to pull harder, if you're snag fishing or something, the rod isn't bent double already, and when they're just twisting and turning in the edge like this, you can ease off a bit and just play them nice and carefully. It's much better to be the master of a stiff set of rods than stick on a light set and find there's certain times you can't cast to the fish, or the fish just do you in a snag or in the weed because you can't pull hard enough. This one again is on the squid goo hook bait. So you've got the great attraction of the cell, the squid as well, and you've got that superb buoyancy which is so important with pop-up rigs, and all the mainline pop-ups now are really, really buoyant, which just makes the rig sit that much better. It's not giving up easy, this one. For netting, just keep the rod nice and high. In you come. In that net. Yes, get in! Wicked, well chuffed. How about that for an absolutely classic common carp? 30 pounds 8 ounces, a Belgian bar of gold. Absolutely over the moon, and nailed again, absolutely nailed on that hinge stiff rig. This time a size 8 crank choddy, one of Tom Dove's brainchilds, and once they go in, they properly stay in. Well, it's the hottest part of the day, and again, completely against the rule book, we are into what feels like a very powerful carp. It's just taken about 50 yards of line on its first run. That's right out there now. This is why we go carp fishing right this moment now. Just praying that you win. It's by no means over. Come on, be good to me. Be good to me. The most epic battle so far. Another beautiful Belgian bar of gold. It's in the net. Come on. It's in the net. Yes! Got him! Come on! That is wicked. What a way to end our first session on the low stock big pit. 10 bites, 10 fish in the net for the two of us, and this gorgeous thing went 32 pounds, and what a battle it was. And I think the difference between success and failure on here for this session has been moving around a lot. We've stayed really mobile. I've followed Darrell's lead. When the fish have moved, we've moved with them. And I think that, coupled with the small hook baits, covered in the squid goo, and the banoffee bottom baits, has been the difference. And can't wait to get back. We're going to have a regroup, rethink about it, and get back later on in the summer. Every time you get a ripper on a big lake like this with not many fish in it, your heart is in your mouth.
Every bite is electric, you know, because the possibilities that it could be a fish that you'll cherish forever is just there.
And when you're playing one, you're just thinking, don't come off, don't come off, don't come off. That moment when it goes in the net, it is so sweet. Like anything in your fishing, if you've worked hard to achieve it, it feels all the better. We are back for our second session on this low stock big pit, and we found them already. And if you don't get anything else from this section of the masterclass, get location from this one. We got here late last night, arrived in the dark, just bivvied up, no rods out the van or anything at all. Once it got light this morning, Darrell and I were keeping an eye on the area that we bivvied up in, scanning the water, didn't really see anything worth fishing for, so we went our separate ways. We've got walkie-talkies as well. He's gone one way round the 100 acres, I've gone the other way round it, and I've found fish in this corner. And it was blatantly obvious, there was loads of bubbles out there. And if you stay there long enough, if the carp's feeding, you'll see one show. And sure enough, one showed right over the top of the bubbles, then another one shown, then another one shown. So I've legged it back, packed my bivvy away, gone and got the rods from the car, wheeled it all the way round here. I was far away from the car park as you can possibly get. There's only 2 or 3 other anglers fishing. It's now sort of early August. We expected it to be busier than it was, but it seems to be exactly the same as the last time we come. They're showing in close. I've got 2 rods out there already, little tiny pop-ups on every rod, no baits going in the swim at all. I'm going to get this third one out there, just cast down the margin, sit back and see if we can get a quick bite. Just looking around the lake a little bit because it didn't look good over there, and there was a load of fish in this bay here, loads and loads of them. I've managed to sneak a couple of rods just out there. There's a lot of Canadian pondweed in the edge, so I've fished a hinge stiff rig on a helicopter rig. I've squeezed a bit of foam around the hook so that it all stands upright off the bottom, and then when that foam melts it sinks down in amongst the fronds of weed. And I've just thrown a little sprinkling of sort of 1/4 and 1/2 baits out there just to get the fish hopefully to come in and have a feed. They're right on top of me, so it's very touch and go here whether or not we're going to get a bite. It might just spook them a little bit further out. This is basically the difference between how most people fish on this kind of water and how me and Darrell are fishing. They'd be in the normal swims, they'd be plotted up, there'd be a fridge in the bivvy, there'd be loads of marker float and all that going on. We're just flopping really light leads in amongst the fish, a little tiny sprinkling of bait, and hopefully that'll buy us a bite when the rest of the lake's not doing anything. So I'm going to sit back for a few hours, see if anything occurs. If it doesn't, I'll assess the situation then. Well, that's coming up lovely and clean. It's been a very exhilarating but frustrating couple of hours here. The fish have continued to show sort of just beyond where I'm fishing, the other side of a snag tree from where I'm fishing. I saw the massive koi, there's a 50-pound koi in here, and I saw that come through and it was drifting around out on the surface. So they're all over us here, but it appears that they've moved more into the corner, and they're also showing out down the bottom bank now. So I'm going to repo round to the swim round there. If I get round there, I can get everything sorted for the night, get the 3 rods out, and then I'm done. If they're not here in the morning and they start showing on the bait I've put in the other swim, I can move around there as well. But it's absolutely mad. There's so many big fish out there. I can't wait to get the rods back out. Good morning. A pretty uneventful first night on our second session. 3 o'clock this morning I had a bream on the left hand rod which is cast right down into the corner there where the bulk of the fish were yesterday afternoon, and I heard fish showing out there in the dark during the night but no other takes came. But this morning the fish are up off the tip of the reeds. They're just round the corner from a point, so one's just shown there now. They're just gradually creeping down that margin, and I'm sure because it's going to be hot again today they're going to end up in this corner, so I'm definitely staying put. Right hand rod straight in front of me has had fish showing near it. The middle rod is cast over to that margin and I've had fish showing over that as well. It looks really good for this corner again basically, but this is the sort of fishing that I love to do. You know, it's not easy fishing. We're fishing very mobile. Me and Darrell on the walkie-talkie the whole time. He's not seen enough in his swim, so he's going round to fish the other side of that point. You know, it's big fish fishing. It requires a lot of effort, and if you get it right, it just feels so sweet.
As you can see, I've had a little move. Ran in that swim yesterday, didn't see anything else. Cast out for the evening. I did see 2 this morning, sort of just after first light, but I was on the walkie-talkie to Dan and he'd said he'd seen loads. Left the cameraman with the bivvy, took the mountain bike round, come and had a quick look, and walked into this swim. And if you can see that brick just down there in the edge, I'm not joking, I've been here 30 seconds to a minute, and a common upper 30, maybe a 40 pounder just come right out of the water. Went back in, I could see it scales as it swam off. I've got 2 rods around the corner, sort of on the shelf. I think the reason we haven't caught this time is the fish, they're higher in the water, so even when they're showing further out, they're not like running aground, you know, they're not hitting the bottom. So I think even if they do show further out, it's better to stay close, hoping that when they do come in, the depth of water is less, you know, so I've got more chance of encountering the hook bait. Talking of my rigs and stuff, I'm using the same Milky Toffee pop-ups with the Squid Supreme goo, and they're really bright. Rig-wise, I'm just using little hinged semi-stiff end trap, size 8 jolly hooks, really nice, dainty setup, probably a lot smaller than what the European anglers would use, but it's fairly open water here. I don't need to fish like massive hooks. You know, I've caught big fish in England like nearly to the same size as the ones in here. All being well, I generally land what I hook. So that's up to speed now. I'm going to keep the noise down and hopefully we might see some action. Right, the little move has just paid off. Right hand rod pretty close in on the margin of the shelf where they've been showing. Absolutely ripped off, and feels like a decent fish. Sometimes, you know, after all the hard work that we've done, it's all the more satisfying when you actually finally get into one. And although this session we've had to work a bit harder, I think there's a chance we're going to get amongst them now. There's just chugging left. Mate, this is fighting like an absolute enormodon. Right, I think I might wade down to the next peg, say pulling it back up past these snags on the left. Yeah, I think that's going to be the call. I've got a net in the other swim. Yeah, let's go, let's go. Oh my good mother God. Come on, come left. Right, it just went on a mega run, you know, I just saw it in close. I know for a fact it's bigger than any common I've ever caught in my life. I'm desperate to get this in. These fish in this lake are really special, especially as they are to me at home. And I'll do anything to get this in. Every time we see him, he just shoots back out into the lake. And just see that little pink pop-up hanging out his mouth, and off he shoots. Here he comes again, close to these snags. Try and steer him away. Try and steer him away, let's see. No, do not go round there. Right, here we go. Death circles. Oh my God, look at that. That is ridiculous. Get in there. Yes, yes. Absolutely yes. Yes. Oh my God. You want to see the size of this? It's absolutely unbelievable. Fish of my dreams, without doubt, incredible. Right guys, commons in the sling, it's all zeroed up. My personal best came from here on the last visit, it was 51.5 I believe, or 51.4. I'm hoping this is going to slightly do it. I'm absolutely buzzing to see what it goes, so let's have a little looky. Oh my God. It's not. It's just under 46. Just under 46. Can't be grumbling at that though, you know, absolutely over the moon. He's not quite as big as I thought he was, not a personal best, but who cares when they look like this, you know. Incredible battle, he looked huge in the clear water. The little move, first of all into the point, and then moving round again, where the little bit of showing had been going on, has paid off handsomely. It's gone to show that our tactics are working. The rigs, the baits, and just the moving around, you know, the location being the key. Absolutely classic carp, you know, you couldn't catch better than this anywhere in the world. Right, let's have one last little look at her before we slip her back. Absolutely buzzing.
Well, no sooner has the Peckinator bagged one, and I'm in on the left-hand rod. 10.5 rod lengths down into the corner, and I think the pivotal thing was I sprayed a load of bait down there earlier on. This is on like a match the hatch hook bait. It's a cell pop-up that I've made myself with cork dust, and it's exactly the same colour as these banoffees that I'm feeding, and it's worked. I knew the fish would come back down into this corner today. I didn't expect to run now, but just it's so nice when you have a plan and it works out. So whether he goes in the net or not, we're getting to grips with the place. Get in that net. Get in that net. Come on. Yes! Get in! Ah, that is wicked, man, wicked. How about that for an absolutely perfect common carp to open my account on this session. £32 on the button. And it is so sweet when you try really hard and then you get your just rewards. Absolutely wicked. It's a good fish. Another one on the left-hand rod. It's a fat one. Come on, get in the net, get in the net. Yes, got him, come on. Check that out. What an awesome carp from an awesome lake. £40 4 ounces. My first 40 from here for 18 years. And it feels very sweet indeed, I can tell you. And the difference between today, basically I'm putting loads of bait in. I'm chopping them in half, using the banoffees, putting them out with a catapult. They make hardly any splash. And I've put a load of bait out there now because they were showing in front of Darrell. They weren't in this corner, so I thought, right, I'll bait up, get it in there quick and get a rod over the top of it. And that's what's going. And yesterday I was probably going too softly, putting little bits of crumb in, not much bait at all. And it wasn't provoking a feeding response, but today they are bang on this bait. literally only even put the bobbin on the left-hand rod, and this is a big fish. Come on, fella. Oh, round in circles, in the net. Get in, you monstrous carp, come on! Ah, yes, get in! How about that for a Belgian super beast? 47 pounds, 12 ounces, probably a 50 pounder at the right time of year, but who cares when they look like this? And it just shows if you put the right bait on the right rig in the right spot, you can make a notoriously difficult water look pretty easy. We've come to the end of our second session on this big pit, and we have learned absolutely loads. After those successes at the start, the fish just sort of ebbed away from that area, and I didn't fish on the second night. I baited up both areas where I'd seen fish that morning, opted not to fish, got up really early, looked for fish, didn't see anything, and just didn't even cast out down there. There was no point. Went down to see Darrell. In true Darrell style, we'd already moved. The fish had moved a couple of 100 yards along the bank, so he'd flicked 3 rods out. It took him a few casts to do it. And we've noticed on this session that the fish are more spooky than they were last time. I think last time they'd only spawned a few weeks previous. They were obviously hungry. They'd accept the casting a little bit more. And although it's produced one beautiful common for Darrell, he's moved and moved again onto showing fish, and it hasn't produced any more. So we're going to have a rethink there. I moved down here yesterday because I saw a load of fish over off that beach area. You can't fish there. It's a dog walking zone for the sort of last 100 yards, unfortunately. And this is as close as I could get to them. I didn't see any fish in this area. One was spotted here during the day when I wasn't in the swim, but I thought it looked a lot better here than it did up the other end. I put 3 rods out. This morning I got woken up by a bream on the left-hand rod, then a bream on the middle rod very soon after. Nothing happened on the right-hand rod, and I saw a fish show over the top of it, and I really felt I was going to get one. And then the sort of time for a bite sort of ebbed away. I ended up winding that rod in, and I think I'd cast it slightly too close to the bottom of the shelf, and it was in a little bit of weed. Put it back out again and caught a bream on it almost instantly, which to me confirmed that the rig wasn't fishing when the carp showed over the top of it. But most importantly, a very, very good Belgian angler fished the next swim up to me and had a bite in the night, a lovely mirror, about thought was 35 pound, and he had a small common just after first light. He got it right. Me and Darrell got it wrong. Darrell moved down here because he'd seen fish showing first thing this morning, flicked out his light leads again, and it just didn't work. You know, put a load of effort into it, really, really careful to get out, and it didn't produce a bite. Yet the guy in between us caught 2. So he is definitely doing something that we are not. So all it's done for both of us is just fired us up to get back here and try and work it out. Big pits are just so interesting because they're different every time you come. The fish's habits have definitely changed in the last month. They're probably going to change in the next month, but personally, I cannot wait to get back and get at them again.
I always tell myself there's 4 things that I need to align in my fishing, and that is locate the fish and the spot where they want to feed, use a bait that they want to eat, fish a rig that you're confident in that doesn't tangle, strong enough to land the fish, and a sharp hook. You know, the camouflaging bits that you see these days are important, you know, but they are secondary important. You know, if you take out one of the top 4, you cannot catch a fish. So I concern myself with the top 4 first, and then I worry about whether I can fish slack lines, tight lines, back leads. I worry about all that secondly. You know, it's getting the real raw key fact right and keeping them aligned as much as you can.
Well, it's my first night back for over a month and a bite straight away. Well chuffed with this boilie muncher. 44 pounds 4 ounces, and my first mirror carp out of here for a lot of years. Well pleased with this one. And in our absence, the fish's behaviour have changed, and so have the tactics. We're fishing further out, we're putting a load of bait out, boilies and tigers, and we could see this one's been in the sling about an hour, and there were tigers in there, so he's definitely been eating them as well. but it was a peaches and cream hook bait on an IQD rig that did the business. God, it's proper heavy. I'm gonna do a few stills and get him back.
Right, you join me back in Belgium. I've actually been here 8 nights on my own before Danny arrived. I enjoyed the first trip so much, I thought I'd come here and do my own personal fishing, and I've actually got 2 weeks left. Things have changed a lot down here. The locals have all turned up again. The lake was very quiet before, but they've all come because the weights are up, and the normal sort of etiquette here is a lot of swim rotation. You know, the anglers are getting into the good swims, letting a guy go in for the weekend and then taking that back over. This has meant that moving around all the time when I'm on fish has led to certain swims being taken again and not being able to get back into them. I did manage to catch one on the 3rd night. I'd reeled in because there was no fish showing in my swim, had a trot round on the mountain bike, found a few fish, got on them, and was probably out for 5 AM, 30 yards out, a few boilies flicked round, and I had a take by 6, which turned out to be a lovely 35 common. Because so many of the good swims are getting occupied, I've had to go into sort of a more of a camping mode, and Danny's doing the same, I think. I've came into this swim because it's sandwiched between 2 of the absolute flyers. I've got a beach swim to my left and the big tree to my right, and those 2 pegs have been doing consistent action. So I've come in here, been told it's not such a good peg, but I've seen fish out here each morning, and it took 2 days to sort of work out what I was doing. I went a little bit further and found a nice hard spot sort of where it starts to shallow up, and I managed to catch a 42-pound common the first night that I did that, and on the last night I managed a 38 common. So I'm really, really pleased about that. The only downside so far about this swim is that the fish might have moved off. You know, they've been here since I was in here, and I only capitalised for the last 2 days. But fortunately, Danny is right on them. So all being well, hopefully we'll get a few to show you.
This is the rig I caught the fish on, and it's my #1 rig for fishing on a hard bottom with boilies. It's very, very aggressive, much more aggressive than most people's rigs, and there's a number of reasons for that. First of all, the hook and the hook bait. It's a size 2 curve shank. Totally different from what we were doing pop-ups earlier on in the year. There we wanted a little tiny hook because it's standing up off the bottom, you're casting it showing fish, there's no snags or anything around, and we were using small hook baits. Now I'm using a 20mm slow sinker. This is a peaches and cream, straight out the packet. So a bigger hook is employed because the hook is lying on the bottom. It's not popped up at all, it's not sitting on its point, it's lying flat, and the bait is just sort of hovering just above it. So it obscures the sight and the size of the hook. And the fish don't know it's a big hook until it's in their mouth, and I think big hooks in this situation grab hold better than small ones. Now this hook is very aggressive at turning because I'm coupling it with 20-pound IQ2, so it's a stiff hook link. It's coming out the eye, the point side of the hook, and that turns it over and it makes it catch hold really, really quickly. And I think it's quicker than most other rigs with a braided section or anything that's a little bit softer. And if you think, when the fish suck the bait in, we've seen it on the underwater, it's in and out of their mouth in a split second. You want it to go in and it's caught them straight away. And that's what this does. Got a big D on the end there. That's not for anti-ejection, it's just to allow the bait and the hook to separate as the hook turns and catches hold. So they go in the mouth, they're very close together, so the point's got to catch hold. As it starts to do that, the bait can get out of the way and let it penetrate properly. I've got a hook link of about 6 inches because I'm fishing on a hard bottom. I've got a sinker in the middle of it just to help everything sit down flat. I don't put it near the hook anymore because it makes the hook sink too quickly. And then down to the lead system, my favourite cog that I've been using for years and years now, I've been testing this for absolutely ages. It is now commercially available. This is the 4-ounce distance version. It's flat on purpose so it doesn't roll over and make the rig sit funny. So it's going to come down onto the bottom like that because of the resistance of the hook link and sit flat every single time. That's straight onto a lead clip, and then down onto some dark matter tubing. And it's really important that you use tubing with this. This rig is more prone to tangling than a standard rig, than a standard lead clip. So by using a stiff hook link and a thick bit of tubing, you reduce the risk of that. And I always watch it in the air. You can put a little bit of foam on, which will help the sight of the bait as you're casting it out, and just make sure the two are separated. And what I tend to do is feather it just before it hits the clip. That pushes the hook link away from the tube, and you can see it all outstretched, and you know it's fishing. If it looks like it's wrapped up around the tubing, wind it in and do it again. But if you set it up like that over a bed of boilies, you will be getting loads of bites.
Right, so here's my rig for this session. I've got a peaches and cream wafter on there, and that's tied knotless knot to a size 6 wide gape. Great hook to land ratio on this rig, and the key points, the dark matter braid which I've got here is knotless knotted 12 times down the shank. That allows the hair to exit exactly level with the point, and I find that when I use it in this way, I lose very few fish. The rig itself is probably about 8 inches long and tied directly to a hybrid lead clip. Tail rubber onto the back of that, and again the dark matter tubing, very supple, very heavy, and helps to keep the immediate area around the hook bait pinned to the bottom. The lead itself here is a distance lead, and I've been using 2s, 3s and 4s. You know, when I've been casting to showing fish, 2s have been more ample, and when I've been trying to get a special drop, you know, the 3s, and then 4 ounces when I'm really trying to bang it out there. Don't be confused about how simple this is and think that I need to be using something that's more sort of technically advanced. This rig has caught for me wherever I've been, whether it be Coninbrook, Yateley, St Ives, hasn't really mattered, you know. It might be simple, it might look basic, but trust me, it works everywhere I go. Right, check out this crazy little koi common. Over the moon with him, had a tough couple of days, but it was taken on the little wafter hook bait, the size 6 wide gape, and the dark matter braid. Lovely. Had a little bit of a plum round further down the bank a few days ago, found a spot with a leading rod and baited it, and I actually ended up moving it because the fish had been showing more straight in front. And last night in the dark, they started showing out there, and I rewrapped the rod, whacked out to the same tree on the horizon, and this was my result. Perfect. But sometimes fishing doesn't always go to plan. You know, you arrive on a big difficult lake and you know it's hard, you don't see them showing, and you have to go through the grind. You don't go home, you don't give up, because at any moment things can change. You know, one sighting can lead you to 20 captures. It really can, you know, it can be that crucial.
If you turn up and just chuck it anywhere, it will seem like a very big lake. If you find the fish, it will seem like a much, much smaller lake. And the more you fish big waters, the smaller they become.
You know, actually, the downtime for me, you know, when it's not right, it just makes me try harder. When I've caught a fish, you know, and I think I'm going to catch another one in front of me, I can have a lie down in the bed chair. You know, I'm actually quite chilled at that point. You know, it doesn't become like hard work. You know, the hard part is getting yourself in that position. You know, when it's not happening, you just have to try harder.
It's not for everybody, it's not for the faint-hearted, and I think some people do make the mistake of going on these sort of places too early in their fishing career. They're out of their depth, they're not catching anything, they don't know why, and that's only for a lack of experience. It's not necessarily to do with their skills or anything else. It's something to be worked up to.
Well, as you can see, guys, by the attire that I'm wearing, it's far later into the year. We're in October, it's much cooler, and I'm here on my 4th session. But before we go into that, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what happened after the cameras left at the end of September. I was staying on, I was doing a 3-week session, and I think I had about a week to go when the cameras left. I moved straight from the car park swim into the beach, and I had a really good result. You know, I came here hoping for one of the real big ones, and I did manage to catch a fish called the lemon fish. It was a 56-pound mirror, and I was over the moon with that. But the next day after that, I decided to have a little bit of a move. Went back down into the car park and made a bad decision, but moved again and got into a swim called the Cabin. And it wasn't really on, but as the session sort of progressed, 24 hours in, the fish moved in, and I was fortunate enough to catch one of the real jewels from the lake. They call it the red one. We'd call it a big koi, but it's an absolutely incredible fish. Bright orange, black scales, and 55 pounds. You know, it's a really, really nice one. And another highlight of that session, the following day, I caught a really rare one from the lake, a fish called the pearl, which was 56 pounds. So all in all, I'd done really well in that back week and sort of turned the session round. I'd learnt quite a lot from it, you know. The original tactics of moving on to showing fish had worked really well initially, but it was very apparent towards the end of the session that with all the anglers coming for long sessions, that if I wanted to fish like that, I would often be stranded in swims without fish. So for this 4th session, I had a totally different plan up my sleeve. Well, after those 3 weeks, there was a couple of swims that I had in my mind. You know, I'd been here a long time and I'd spent a lot of dawns watching, and there was definitely a concentration of fish around the central area of the lake. The one problem with that is everybody here are session anglers, so I knew I was going to have to be a bit like a cuckoo, and even for the start of this session, I knew I wasn't going to be able to get where I really wanted. So again, I was here for 3 weeks, and for the first 4 or 5 nights, I couldn't get where I wanted. And the swim that I really fancied was a central one with a westerly off the back. That swim had done a lot of fishing the weeks running up when I've been away, and the problem was it was due to be taken indefinitely. And one morning it was pouring with rain, and I was sat in quite a good swim that I would have stayed for the duration, but I was only 1 night into it, and I woke up at dawn and I couldn't see a bivvy in the swim, and it was raining, and I didn't have time to think. I literally just packed the bivvy down, left my bed chair and all my tackle out in the rain, wound the rods in, come round here on the mountain bike with a bivvy under my arm like an absolute nutcase, and set it up right round here. And once I was in, I knew from that moment forward I probably wouldn't be moving. The plan was, having seen fish at real long range in the middle of the lake, and most of the usual anglers fishing around 80 to 100 metres, I knew that I can fish further than that and comfortably, and I was hoping that with a lot of bait and a lot of time in an area where the fish get regularly, that I would be able to generate some sort of hit. It started off slow, as you can imagine. The first day I probably spent 3 or 4 hours plumbing at extreme range, and I found it all to be a much of a muchness, a lot of it, you know, very silty. I did find one particular hard spot at extreme range, but it was so far out that I knew I wouldn't be able to fish it effectively all of the time, you know, it would be weather dependent. But I settled on a mark at a comfortable range for me, which is well in excess of 120 metres, and it was just soft. It was fairly soft, fairly smooth, but not as thick and gloopy as a lot of the other surrounding areas. The first day I went in with 20 spoms of bait. You're looking at about 2 kilo there. I didn't get anything. It was getting late, so I didn't really have time to fill it in, but I really went for it in the end. I put 45 out the next day, and the following morning I caught my first fish. So I was off the mark, 35 pounder in the bag. Another 45 spoms went out there, and I lost one that night. But because I'd had 2 single bites over that amount of bait, I decided to drop it down a bit. I thought, I've had a lot of bait out there, I've established a patch. They've probably been past it and seen it, so I dropped it to 30. And the 4th night in the swim, I had 4 takes. I had a 51 common, a 49 common, and 2 smaller ones, like upper 20s, maybe getting on for 30 pounds. And on the 5th night, it really came together, and I caught an absolute monster. You know, I wanted to catch a fish close to my PB in England, and I managed that. I caught a fish called Jimmy's fish, and it was 65 pounds. So not over the magical 30 kilo in this country, but more than big enough for me. And I backed that up with another 49 pounder. So all in all, it's gone really well. I've got quite a bit of time left in this swim, and things are looking up. The fish at times are definitely moving away from me and coming onto me, but you never know, you know, it could still happen. I could end up with the same amount of fish again, but I don't want to count my chickens yet. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to take you through the technical gear that I'm using to fish at that range. Right guys, I want to talk to you about the hardware that I'm using, and I've got a prototype rod here. It's a 13-foot Infinity, and Danny's got a version as well. His ones are really stiff and mine have got a fast action, but they are primarily for long range fishing, and we're testing them, and further down the line, maybe in a year's time when we're completely happy, these may be available in the market for you guys to buy. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about it. It hasn't got a test curve. It's 3 to 5 ounce casting weight, and it's got new rings on it, completely different to what you've seen on the current models in the range. They're called minima guides. They've got really thin ceramic, and what that does, it makes the tip section really light and helps you to generate great tip speed. I'm going to move down to the reel. The reel is a Basie. I use it for all my fishing. Excellent long range reel. I love the clutch on it. It's really light. I puck a bit of kit. Now let's talk about the line. You know, when you're long range fishing, the line is one of the key things. It's all good having a stiff rod that's got great action. It's all good having a big pit reel, but you've got to have a thin diameter line, and that is the key to long range fishing. But if you're fishing at long range with thin line without a leader, you're going to crack off sometimes, and again, we don't want to be doing that. And on waters like this, where you're not allowed shock leaders, because of the knot, and this product gets you around that problem. You know, we've got tapered subline on. It's the 0.33 subline, and it's got a 0.50 leader. The leader is 50 foot long, and there is one on either end, so should you snap up, you can reverse it. But one of the top tips that I want to give you for using this product is to cut the leader down. Like I say, it's 50 feet long. I cut it in half. I take off 24 foot, but anywhere between 18 and 24 foot I found to be excellent. You know, it stops that rattle of the real heavy line going through the rings, helps you get down to that thin line quickly, and it travels really, really quick and nice and smoothly through the air. So moving on to the distance sticks, like this is a real key in my fishing. You know, I could have elastic on there, and if I was using elastic, that would catch and that would hinder the range I'm getting. So, but if let's say for example, I'm fishing at 40 rod lengths, I put those sticks in, one rod length apart, I wrap up, and I'm going to be on the same spot every time, which is imperative to be accuracy and when you're baiting. From the distance sticks, I don't go straight to cast. You know, it's really important. You know, when you're taking the line off of those distance sticks, the line is going under different tensions back onto the reel, and that can lead to frap up. So one thing that I'd recommend, take it off the sticks through your hands. And once you've done that, stretch the leader. You know, you've got really thick line on here, and when that's flying off the spool at high speed, it's got a chance of grabbing the butt ring. So what I do, hook it behind the tent peg. I take the leader off until it starts to change onto the thin section. I wrap it round my hand to stop the line digging into the spool under the tension, and I'll just give it a little stretch, you know, and that takes the coils out of it and really helps. But from there, down to the water's edge, flick it out into the lake, put the tip section under the water, including the butt ring, and wind it in from say 80-90 yards. That gives a good even tension of the line going back onto the reel, and will really help to prevent those horrible frap ups that will damage the line. So let's have a little look at my rig. Simple as always. I've got 12 inches of dark matter tubing, and that's really heavy, so I recommend that you don't go much longer than that, because it's so heavy it will take a few yards off your cast. That's neatly pushed into a tail rubber directly onto a hybrid lead clip, and you'll notice that I'm using a 4.5 ounce lead here, and when fishing at really long range, it helps when you're using a big lead, especially in a crosswind, so that when you hit that clip nice and hard, it helps to take the bow out of the line. With a lighter lead, you will end up dropping a little bit short. The hook link that I'm using is 20-pound dark matter, and it's braid. You know, people often say to me, do you worry about braid getting tangles? Long range, short range, I never worry at all, because you need to use a heavy boilie. As long as you've got like an 18-20 miller on there, you hit your clip, you won't get any tangles. I'm going to move on to my casting technique now, and I obviously wasn't always a good caster. I watched a few videos on YouTube with Mark Hutchinson, and there's a few key things, you know, weight transfer and the right kit, you know, and a good technique. And what I do, I hold the rod at sort of 45 degrees, and I keep my feet together. You know, a lot of people recommend that you don't do this, but I keep mine fairly close together. And just as I'm about to cast, my body leans back, all my weight's going back onto my back foot, the foot comes up, I take a stride, and as I plant that left foot down, I'm able to transfer all of my body weight at the same time as pulling that left hand in. And you will notice, when I do that, I cast a really high trajectory, and that gives the lead the possibility to go as far as I need it to, you know. You get behind, push forward, put the foot down, pull in, send it up high, and sail it up there, and at the last minute, bring the rod to the side, and just cushion that clip, you know, so it doesn't ping back on you, and feel that lead down. So there you have it. I'm going to go and get this right out there. I'm here for 3 weeks, and the bait that I brought with me is a mixture of cell, which I air dried at home, high impact banoffee boilies, and some prepared tigers and some unprepared tigers. The ratio that I'm using, It's roughly 1.5 kilos of tigers to 1 kilo of cell to 1 kilo of banoffees, and you'll notice that I've got them in the tiger nut juice, and there's a reason for that. A, it makes them look washed out, softer and easier for the carp to eat, but also I've been having real issues. The bottom out here is really smelly, and when they go out there dry, obviously they're sucking up the that horrible silty smell. So the idea being they're sucking in that tiger nut juice, they're already hydrated, and when they're on the bottom they won't be sucking up that horrible smell. During this session, I've been here 6 nights in this swim. To start with, before the 6 nights I was moving about trying to nick a bite, but when I came to this swim I had a plan, you know, a bait and weight plan. So I initially had a good plumb round, found the spot that I wanted to fish, and I went in with 20 spoms of bait. I didn't get anything, and the next day I put out 45 spoms. So if you go on the ratio that roughly 10 spoms is 1 kilo of boilies, I had 6.5 kilos out there, and I had my first bite. The next night I put another 45 out there, so another 4.5 kilo, and I had another bite. And I was thinking, that's a lot of bait for one bite a night, and obviously they're coming in on it and eating, so I knew they knew it was there. So the next night I dropped it down to 30 spoms. I had 4 bites, and the next night 30 spoms, had another 2 bites. And since then I haven't had a bite, but I put 30 out after catching, and I put another 45 out today. And the reason for that is I don't just want a little bit of food to draw them in. I want the big fish to swim past a big amount of food out there. Even if they don't eat it in one go, I want them to know that it's there. And the thinking is, if they've seen it and they know there's a lot of food there, then they will come back and eat it. So to get all this bait out there, I'm going around the distance sticks exactly the same as the fishing rods, exactly the same amount of wraps. And that, to start with, is putting the bait at the back of the spot. You know, I've plumbed, I know there's an extra rod length of clear, so I'm going out, creating an area where the fish can move into from behind, putting sort of half the amount of spoms out at that range, and then I'm re-clipping half a rod length shorter, and that bait I'm thinking is probably landing the same range as the rigs are. Going to the rod itself, the rod is a 5-pound test curve longbow spod rod, and it's a proper tool for the job. And when you combine that with a spod reel and really fine floating braid, you can't use sinking braid, it has to be really fine floating braid, and put a really heavy 50-pound armour cord leader. You know, the force that's going through there, it needs to be something strong and hard wearing, and that is the ideal thing for that. The casting technique is exactly the same. Make sure you're wearing a finger stall, because when you're casting something that heavy, you've got a real potential to cut your finger. So make sure you've got that. Make sure you've got the front of the clutch screwed down really tight. And again, I've got the short drop, and as I'm lowering it back, I'm getting all my body weight onto the back foot. I'm planting that left foot down, and I'm driving it really high into the sky. And that's going to send it all the way out onto the clip. That's my bait for this session, and that's how I'm getting it out there.
Without any doubt, my top tip is let the fish show you where to fish.
Say you've got a lake that's 100 acres with 100 carp in it. You know, they're going to be grouped together. They're not all going to be dotted out, 1 fish per acre. There's going to be acres and acres of water without fish.
Your eyes are your greatest weapon in carp fishing, and by arriving in the dark or first thing in the morning, you can see fish that show that you're not going to see all day. If you turn up middle of the afternoon, unless it's blazing hot and the wind's pumping into a corner and all the fish are there, you're probably going to find it hard to find them. Get there in the dark and the lake comes alive. So the extra effort will pay dividends, and the more you fish to what you see, the more you will catch.
It's a key thing really. Location is paramount, but on big lakes it is the be all and end all of the fishing.
Definitely keep a record of what you catch and where you catch it from. I write everything down on my phone. If I find a spot that I get bites from, I wrap it round the distance stick so I know exactly how far it is, and then if I go back into that swim on another session, the fish are doing the same thing. I can get out quickly and quietly. And on this lake there are big barren areas, but there are also some prominent features in different swims. Once you've found the feature, record how many rod lengths it is to the feature. You've got it in your phone, so next time you go in there, you can be back on the feature straight away. And that is so important on a lake that's barren for acres and acres. If you can find a swim that's got a feature in it, and the wind's blowing in the right direction and the fish are there, that's where you want to be fishing.
Having different diameter lines is an absolute must, because on a big lake you've got so many different sort of situations that you could be faced with. You could be faced with extreme weed or snags, and in that situation you really want to have like a 0.40 on something like that, a 15-20 pound line, something that will really stand up to some abrasion and help you land those fish in those sort of epic battles that you could encounter. But on the flip side of that, when you're fishing at massive range, a line like that just doesn't travel to the same distances because of its thickness. So something with a 0.30, You know, a nice silky soft line that will help you get those extra yards or can put you into zones that other anglers can't fish. Sometimes on a really difficult lake, just being able to cast that little bit further and having the right equipment for the job has helped me to catch a lot of good ones.
Unless it's really, really snaggy, I would recommend you avoid fishing tight lines, especially when you're fishing in close. I know sometimes at extreme distance you have to do it because of the drag, but we found in the summertime when we were chasing the fish around, we were fishing very, very slack lines, and we got loads of bites doing it. And I noticed a lot of the guys that fish here all the time, even when they're fishing in close, they've got a bowstring tight line. The fish have been fished for like 20 odd years over here. They must know what that is. So if you slacken off, fishing with a stow bobbin, you can semi-fix it in there, so you still get pretty good bite indication, even though the line is slack. And I think it just gives the fish the opportunity to come into the area and feed without coming into contact with the line and without seeing it either.
One of the greatest things that I've added to my armoury when fishing big lakes, and it's only been a recent addition, is a mountain bike. You know, it enables me to get round a huge lake real quick. You know, I can nip round, see another angler, pick up snippets of information, see what they've seen, and I can add this to what I'm thinking about, where they fish are. I can get back to my swim, pack up really quick and get round there. Other things like nipping to the car to get supplies out, or nipping to the shops. It's a great thing, and it's something that I'm going to be incorporating in my angling whenever I'm fishing a big lake.
Use tackle and bait that you've got confidence in. If you've caught elsewhere on something, then use it on a new water. The worst thing you can do is go in with something completely new that you've never caught a fish on, and if you're not catching, you don't know why. So use tried and tested rigs and tried and tested baits. And we found here that the banoffees in the high impact have worked brilliantly. We needed to brick them because we had no freezer facilities. The bait doesn't go off, and the fish have absolutely loved it. And Darrell's caught some fantastic fish on the white banoffee slow sinkers. We've also had fish on pop-ups in the summer. The squid goo's been very good. Garlic's been good as well, and I've caught a few on the cell hook baits that I made with a cork dust as well. So loads of different things have worked, but most importantly they're all baits and rigs that we've caught loads of fish on from other waters. So if you go on somewhere new, stick with what you know works. And before I go, one personal request from me. Please take your litter home with you. Every time I leave this place, I take loads of stuff back to England that I end up recycling because that's the way I am. Some of it's anglers' rubbish, a lot of it is the general public's rubbish. To me, anglers, true anglers, are patrons of the countryside, and I always want a lake to be nicer when I leave than when I arrive. So if everybody did the same thing who was an angler, lakes would be cleaner and tidier than they've ever been before, and we would get an even better reputation than we've got already. So if you bring it with you, please take it home again.
Look at this, 71 pound common, the perfect end to an incredible session. I'm over the moon, amazing fish and an amazing water. Oh, let's get him back. Whoa. Thank you, Michelle.
Well done. Well, ladies and gents, that is the very last carp of Masterclass Volume 2. Thank you very much to all the people that have let us fish their waters, the people here in Belgium, the people in Italy and the UK too. And thanks very much to Darrell and all the members of Team Korda for sharing all their fish catching information. We do sincerely hope it puts loads more fish in your landing net. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you in Volume 3.
You've been tuned into TFTV. Tackle Fanatics stock an extensive range of Korda products at the best prices around. We'll stock a vast selection of end tackle from all the leading manufacturers. To view our range, log on to www.tacklefanatics.co.uk. Remember, Tackle Fanatics offer finance to make your tackle purchase more affordable. Tight lines and wet nets from everybody at TFTV.